Manager for the ADB Coastal Resource Management Project, overseeing the construction of 3 fishery harbours and leading tsunami recovery efforts. From 2018 to 2013, she worked in New Zealand as a manager at the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, further strengthening her expertise in regional water and coastal management. In 2014, she was appointed as the Director General of the Coastal Conservation Department, providing strategic leadership at the national level as the head of Coastal Conservation Department. Currently, she serves in New Zealand as a team leader at Gisborne District Council, responsible for regional rivers and coastal areas management. In parallel, she is also the team leader for the ADB Design Consultancy Project for the Colombo Port Western Container Terminal 2. Madam Mangala brings extensive international experience, strategic leadership and technical excellence in coastal and river engineering, infrastructure development and climate resilience. Cyclone Gabrielle, flood warning system in New Zealand. This is an important topic because New Zealand too vulnerable to frequent flooding and cyclones. Their flood warning manual, robust forecasting system and structured activation process can provide vulnerable insights to lesson learned and recovery efforts where we can understand how to respond to events like Cyclone Gabrielle. So dear audience, welcome you all and for joining us today. Thank you. So without any further ado, I warmly welcome Madam Nandita. Over to you, Madam.
Okay, thank you, Pushmi, for the wonderful introduction. It's good to be here at the same podium after a long time. So this is one of the familiar place, and good to see you guys again. After break. Okay, so today I'm talking about Cyclone Gabrielle recovery and flood warning system in New Zealand. And currently I'm working as the team leader, land, rivers, coastal. Land in the sense it's land drainage actually, and in the Gisborne District Council, New Zealand. And parallelly, I'm the deputy team leader for the Colombo Port Expansion Project, WCD, Design Consultancy, and working for Korean company called Nova. And I'm here every 2 to 3 months time to carry out my duties as TTL. So, so that's my assignment. And the contents of my presentation is like, it's 2 parts. Firstly, we work Cyclone Gabrielle, as Pushmi mentioned, New Zealand is highly vulnerable. Highly vulnerable for cyclones due to the geographical location, and so we had one of the worst cyclone in 2023. That was after 35 years. The worst one recorded was 1988. That was Cyclone Bora, and we had extensive damage to the region, and also I'm talking about the recovery process. And the second part of my presentation is the Gisborne early warning system, which is like how to reduce casualties and how to reduce infrastructure damage. So there's a well-established system in everywhere in New Zealand. There's a consistent approach throughout the country on flood warning system, and everything is governed by flood warning manual, which is a national document. And it's about New Zealand, every chapter, that's because when there's an emergency, other from the other regions, you can get the expertise and they can just run because it's a very familiar document. And there you do flood event classification and based on the science behind, not like ad hoc or random scenarios. Okay, this is New Zealand, part of New Zealand. New Zealand got two islands, North Island and South Island. North Island is pretty much, except Wellington, very mild weather. 9 months like Sri Lanka, and 3 months like it varies from, in the night it's 3 to 4 degrees, and in the morning, like daytime, it's 14 to 16. So this is Auckland. And this is like a pie. This is Auckland, this is Gisborne, this is Wellington capital, and this is New Zealand. And South Island is a long strip with, lot of hills. And if you want to see snow, you have to go to the South Island. And Gisborne district, district council is Gisborne district is like the size of little bigger than Sri Lanka. And we got 4 major river schemes and shoreline of 1650 kilometers, which is very much equivalent to Sri Lanka because Sri Lanka got 1682 kilometers of shoreline. So, and population is very little, less than 500,000 throughout the region. Sorry about the interruption. Yeah. So if you want to ask any question, please interrupt me. I'm more than happy to answer you during the presentation. And I'm down with my leg because I can't stand for 1 hour. So I got a chair. So any other housekeeping? No.
Recording in progress.
Okay. So like any other region, we got 5,000 kilometers of roading network. Roading network, and in New Zealand, the state highways are governed by National Transportation Agency, and all district councils are responsible for normal roading network and many other infrastructure. So flood history is well recorded in New Zealand as a part of the flood post-flood scenarios. We must record, prepare hydrographs, make determine the ARI levels and all the floods. This is since Bola. We had made, you can see how many floods we faced, but Cyclone Gabrielle was about 200 anyway. All the others, like we got peaks, but the damage was not that severe. So New Zealand has a history of getting floods every 35 years, like 2 consecutive floods coming together. According to the records, 1918 and 1919 we had a major flood, then 47 and 48, and again 63 and 64. And during that period, actually, the engineering, British engineers brought all the systems to New Zealand. And then again 85 was not that bad, but Bola 88 was there was a gap. And since then, every year there's some sort of a flooding situation, but not like major cyclone. So last time we had Cyclone Gabrielle in 2020. And all these data are well recorded. So, and all the systems are well equipped, and you can get any document even for the past 100 years if you are interested. You can type document those days. You can have access. And this is during Gabrielle, and it's in New Zealand. I think the irrigation department we call bunds, right? In Sri Lanka, the river, to avoid flooding, we have bunds, right? We call it bunds. But in New Zealand, we call stop banks. So the white lines are stop banks. This is one of the biggest river in New Zealand, in Gisborne, and the state highway. And the white lines are stop banks. So this is the same place during Cyclone Gabrielle. You can see the state highways just few inches below the water level, and you can see the same two trees here. And these are kiwi fruit farms. And New Zealand is like in our region especially, we got like 1 million cattle and 1.5 million sheep and about less than 500,000 people in a similar size of the country like Sri Lanka. And this is the same place during Bola. At that time, the stop banks were inside 100 years, but Bola was more than 100 years, and it's overtopped, and the entire area were under floods. And current days, we design stop banks for 200-year ARI plus RCP 8.5 climate change scenarios. These are the timelines for nowadays construction. So during Bola, it's like any other, like Sri Lanka or Bangladesh or maybe any other country, the flood levels are so high, and you can see the fencing posts. These are about 1.5 to 2 meters. The height is 1.5 meter to 2, and you can see the debris level flood marks are here. So these are kiwi fruit farms, and you can see the river slurry, mud, everything on the go-charts and paddocks. And New Zealand got a lot of, one of the major industries is timber. We got enough timber, and during harvesting we leave a lot of timber debris, and these debris are ended up in rivers during bad weather events. And woody debris is one of the biggest problem in New Zealand, and it's huge. And so during what happens is you get heaps of woody debris creating dams, and in a way it's attenuate the floods, but at the same time, water goes overtop the rivers. So woody debris has been a real problem in Sri Lanka, and councils are, the national government is working on consenting process to make it more stringent on harvesting techniques. The labor in New Zealand is extremely expensive, like being qualified PhDs, MSc, with qualified people, our hourly rate is less than $100, but tradesmen like carpenters, plumbers, their hourly rate is much more than, much higher. So labor is quite expensive, so we always use machinery. So when the stop bank rate, you can see it's a minor river, but the damage to the paddocks, and we have to fix the stop bank, and we generally use helicopter because helicopter charge is quite cheap, and 1,500 per hour. So what we do is take sandbagging. Sandbagging is done by helicopters. So it's a matter of few hours, and stop banks are fixed, and no people. So that's one of the biggest advantage or disadvantage, because manpower is quite less. So whatever happens, we always go for machinery or helicopters. And it's like any other, like Sri Lanka, during Ditwa, I've seen a lot of road damages and road failures. it's equally same in New Zealand, like, one of the major aerial route towards north. It was completely disconnected, no access to the north, and the replacement cost was $2 billion. And not like in Sri Lanka, recovery is quite slow in New Zealand. That's one of the plus point, because sometimes I get irritated. People go through processes in Sri Lanka, even after tsunami. After 4 days, we went to Gaul and Ambalango, being in the coast conservation department. Within 4 days, roads were fixed. But in New Zealand, it takes ages because of the stringent rules and regulations, and you have to do stakeholder approval, participation, indigenous communities approval, and all this takes 9 months. So, recoveries, until then you can have like bail bridges or something like, but real work is quite slow. So, in that way, Sri Lanka is much faster, whether you like it or not, you have to accept that. And sometimes we, because we work in Sri Lanka, we feel irritated, like these people talk, having meetings, and still the problem is there. So that's plus point on Sri Lanka. I don't know which plus point, but like they do in the correct way. And construction, it took 1 year, so that's again like it's long. So these are the road failures, and this is the water supply, treated water supply to the town, Lisbon city, and this was completely damaged during Gabrielle, and you can see the water pipeline, just it was everywhere. And Lisbon, we didn't have water for 3 to 4 days, and then they supplied a temporary line and treated and supplied water. We didn't have internet for 3 days, so it was like living in 1950s or 40s, and so that was a reality check, like how to be without internet and water and electricity. So that was quite a good example, because yeah, people complained, but it was a good experience. And this was the water pipeline that was also damaged, and these are big, huge rivers. And again, these are the flood heights and debris impact. These trees are just like 30, 40 foot, like tall trees. You can see like, masts, but those are huge. And you can see the debris line, and it's all, yeah, that's the, this is on my area, most of the, because it's very common to have like floodgates. I don't know much about like irrigation. They got a lot of floodgates, or I don't know. But in New Zealand, lot of floodgates, because agriculture, they release water during normal conditions, and during floods, these floodgates are closed. And all the floodgates and flood channels were completely covered with mud and silt. So recovery was quite, it took time. And timber is quite cheap in New Zealand, as I told you. Timber is, if you go to the beach, you can have a truckload of timber. So timber, we use, instead of rock farmer, we use timber piles. So all the rivers and revetments, even the coastal revetments, are done by timber piles. So these are huge timber piles. You see, it's small, but these timber piles are maybe like 6 to 12 meter long, depending on the location. So this was after recovery, like fix up the that was short, but like and also these timber revetments are tied back to the concrete blocks. So some revetments fail, like because of the tie-back failure, and then how to fix the tie-backs is in these photographs. These are not like major construction, but that's my area, so I thought to just share with you. And we stayed in the pipeline, drinking pipeline. That was a big job, and like a lot of consultants came from everywhere, and construction and transportation and fix up the pipeline was quite a challenging process. And yeah, you can see the work going on, treated water pipeline abutments, like roads were damaged, so they had to fix the road to install the pipelines. And so this is just a general overview of the restatement of pipeline. And again, once again, the pipelines, we use helicopters to lift it, and you can see the helicopter is lifting the casing of the pipeline, and so in that way it's fast. Somehow we managed to provide water within 2-3 weeks. Until then we got water from a different intake. Treatment plant was underwater, and again, so we had to, I'm not an expert on wastewater treatment, but all the filters and everything was replaced, and it was running after. And this one got a drainage network that's under me, because these purple lines are the drainage systems in New Zealand, in this one. Everything is mapped in New Zealand. If you get 100-year flood, you can see on your desktop, what are the floodways, what are the high hazard zones, and what are the flood bonding areas, and all these are well mapped. So what you have to do is to select 200-year flood and see because based on the nature of the flood, you can see everything in your laptop. So wherever you work, it's quite easy. We hardly go when there's an inspection, unless if it is really urgent. We don't go out to see the place, because everything is there and we can immediately take decisions being in the office. So that was my first part of the presentation on the Gabrielle recovery. And here I'm talking about the second part, which is the flood warning system. Not only this one, the entire country got the same flood warning system, but depending on the geography and river levels, you have your individual flood warning systems, and that is maintained under me. So flood warning manual, it clearly specified who does what. Not random people come and take decision. And nobody is going to do that. And in Sri Lanka, I can remember, I could remember long ago at Calcutta, there was a flood, and Calcutta GA went and cut the sandbar, and we lost the entire Calcutta sandbar. It was a nice sandbar there. Now saltwater intrusion and sand accumulation under the bridges, various other problems came in, but it was due to one decision. So in New Zealand, only designated person, whether it's even bosses, they don't take decisions. If a flood warning officer is a very intermediate level position, and flood warning officer takes some decisions, and not like directors or chief executive or anybody else take decisions. So that is clearly specified, and nobody touches your area, and that's your duty. And we got 3 tier systems: civil defense, emergency management, that is like disaster management in Sri Lanka center. So this is very qualified, those who work in forces, they are managed CDM, and community warning and evacuation is done by them. At the same time, interagency coordination, rail department, roading networks, and running the emergency coordination center, camps in Sri Lanka. So that is their area. Flood information officer. We got hydrologists and science graduates, trained science graduates to operate telemetry systems and flood. We use the Delft model. So running models and validate data and forecast and advise duty flood warning officers on uncertainties. And they predict the status you get and liaise with the Met Service Department. Met Service Department is like, meteorological department in Sri Lanka, and they provide live updates. So they have to liaise with Met Service and take actual levels in the actual levels in the models, and they give the final decision. Flood warning services is that's flood warning officer and flood warning administrator and land reverse coastal, that's me, right? Yeah, that is, I'm the team leader there. So it's the flood warning decisions and operation coordination. That is, once we decide that the river trigger level breaches, we issue e-texting. That is like e-texting is everybody within the what I showed you, like has a zone. If it is a 100-year flood, we know the telephone numbers. It's all grouped together. So what we have to do is just to press a button. Then that area gets the e-text. 3 tier, that's also 3 tier. Initially you get flood levels in this river is this much, and you have to be ready. And the second level is next update will be evacuation. So please go to safe places. And the last warning is evacuate immediately. So so you have your flood warning officers have to decide whether, like during trigger levels. Okay, if it is rising only, because sometimes you reach the trigger level, but rain gauges upstream show the decreasing levels. So if it is downhill, we don't send e-text, right? So when it's uphill, we immediately issue e-texting system. So that's very well established, and depending on the trigger levels, I'll come back to that. So these are the flood warning and who does what during an emergency. We got river monitoring cameras throughout the region, and you can see, if you go to Gisborne District Council website, you can see any public has the access to, you can see the live river cameras. Even from Sri Lanka, you can see the river levels in New Zealand. So, and it's updated every, every minute or even up to a decimal point of minutes. And so based on the river levels, that's one of the first thing you have to check, flood warning officers, and I'll come back to you. And Met services, they provide live forecasting. If you go to Met service New Zealand, you can see how cyclone is, how to move and where to move and when to get the peak and when is the danger zone. And they issue initially they issue yellow warning. Next they issue orange warning, and they issue red warning as well. So red warning is catastrophic, and orange warning we generally activate when we get orange warning. So when the Met service issue orange warning, flood information team mobilized and check live updates on the cameras, and they decide the predicted water levels based on the models and also upstream rainfall. And then flood warning services mobilized and CDM standby for red warning if it is rising. So that's pretty straightforward, but it's a huge responsibility for the flood warning officers to take decisions, timely decisions, and also they have to do a lot of documentary work. Like everything, you have to document step by step. Otherwise, they are in trouble. And activation triggers, we follow 4-tier process. That is hydrometric network triggers, that is river cameras, river levels, and forecasted warning from services. And we get its public is quite reliable in New Zealand. So they exactly give this bridge is underwater, this place is, this paddock is underwater. Like, you know, we get reliable information. So it goes very well with the flood level, and when we get public information, and in the Facebook, District District Council Facebook, they put posts with photographs. So that's another source on the ground, and always we check historic hydrographs, and because sometimes you get double peaks, sometimes you get like sharp peak can just drop down, and sometimes you get like flat. It takes time to release water. So depending on the shape of the hydrograph, in the history, flood warning occurs beside because they interpolate the current predicted levels and telemetry science and everything together, and they predict, okay, this is going to be this much. And based on that, we should take it. If there are different potential, because sometimes all these levels are not correlating each other. Some floods, it goes very well, but some floods, there are no reported floods, but Met Service says red warning, and practically upstream rainfalls are not bad as expected. So flood warning officers are well trained to take decisions during that sort of a scenarios. And historic flood heights, that was well mapped. So we exactly know the inundation areas based on it relates to the water levels. So during, if it is 100 year, 50 year, so it's well connected to the ARIs and on the ground. So if we know it's only peak zone, we send the text only for the peak zone. And if it is blue zone, then we put, e-texting to both. And then likewise, until we reach the high trigger levels, we send the information. So this is quite easy because history plays a quite a important role during floods. I'm not sure how disaster management center maintain all these scenarios, but in New Zealand it's well established. But it doesn't mean that it's quite easy. It's because we have only 6 flood warning officers, and one is lead and one is backup because they have to work 24 hours. So people get tired and fatigued. So the next one steps in. So and everything is done throughout the region by 6 people, and they're given 2 weeks rotation every month. So each person get a rotation every 3 months time. But if he's on a holiday, you can always adjust, and everything is that in the system. You can change your rotation with a mutual with another person. So that's how it is. And what I told you so far, it's in a flow chart. So this is that, how CDM operates, how contractors operate, and how flood warning team operates, and how, because my area is mainly maintainers who mobilize with contractors and stand by for a major event. Sometimes we have to close roads, sometimes we have to do sandbagging, get helicopters ready, get sand ready, bags ready, everything ready. That's my area. So I'm basically in charge of the maintenance part and work with contractors. Okay, activation triggers. I'll show you an example, step-by-step example. This is Met Service, when Met Service issue heavy rain warning. These are flood warning guys. They just check fuse models and ask my contract is Fulton Hogan because we qualify contractors at the beginning of every year, and we have a designated contractor to attend. So at the moment it's Fulton Hogan, one of the leading companies in the world. So they got ordered here, and they must check all the floodgates. This river got 127 floodgates. So they have to, because 3 days before mid-service issue their warning. So within the next 2 days, not the last day, contractors go and check all the floodgates, whether it's closing properly, whether debris like trapped, usually, timber planks trapped within the floodgate and it can't see. So then it's getting flooded. So likewise, they check all the floodgates and give me the okay that everything is running properly. And group email was sent by the Civil Defense Emergency Management Team, and when it's reaching 3.5 meters water level and still rising, then these are least blocks like river, what do you call, floodplains. Floodplains are leased out to community to do their agricultural practices, and those are floodable land. So definitely those are getting flooded. So we have to inform them because they take a risk. They pay a tax to the council and get leased out and do like short term like pumpkin or squash or tomato or anything. So they can't. It's an agricultural practice in New Zealand. So we have to inform them that your land is getting flooded, and so they take their machines away. And but mostly they can't harvest. It's getting flooded, right? So that is 3.5 meter level, and depending on tide, and we have to check other aspects as well. And when it's 5 meters, again they check the model and notify me, and to get ready with the contractor standby and liaise with CDM and get ready with the EXP system. And this is all within the flood warning manual, and also lengths, and we have to consider the length because upstream rain it takes 3 hours to get to the levels in the town. So and all these are taken into account. And 6 meters again, Wakakota is New Zealand Transport Agency. So don't get like you might see different languages. New Zealand got Maori and white people. So now they changed, last government they changed most of the names to indigenous names. So that is transport agency. So we have advised transport agency to close the roads and and railway bridges to check the buttons and stuff. So at every level, based on the history, we know which area is getting flooded, and it's clearly specified. And at 7 meter, like we get ready with the sandbagging because there's a manual for sandbagging everything in New Zealand. Even to cut a tree, there's a manual. So everything is nicely spelled out, and people have to follow that protocol. So and 7.5 evacuation that's 7.5 at the 7.5 level. There's a rural community, that is the river goes around, and these people are getting flooded at every flooding event, and 7.5. And this river can go up to 12 meters. So by 7.5 meter, that area is getting flooded. So it's like step-by-step process. You can see what happens in up to 8. It's every half a minute. There are systems specified, but after 8 meters, every 0.2 meters, what to be done and what should be done, and everything is clearly spelled out in the flood warning manual. And yeah, so evacuation is this area that is 11 meters, and yeah, this is some of the areas getting evacuated at different levels, and by 11 meters our stop banks are overtopped. Right, stop banks opening at approximately 12 meters, so but 11 meters we ask people to evacuate. So this is the for each and every river, all these levels are very well specified, and what to be done and who is responsible in actions. Everything is spelled out. So e-texting again, as I told you, because this is flood warning officers' duty, they just map the predicted water levels based on the rivers and flood model, and then history, and consider all three scenarios plus public information, and then only they recommend to issue e-texting. Not only during floods, these people, that was today. Yeah, this site from the, yeah, this is, you can see the date is today, and this morning, because yesterday we had a bad weather event, and you have to submit, the flood warning officer must submit a situation report, SITREP, we call it SITREP every 3 hours. So they have to clearly specify what are the actions taken and at what level and why, and all these must be recorded during the process. So that's all. Like, I thought, post-floods real check. It's not that easy, because it's give and take, and sometimes it goes wrong. The decision, you have to take the decision on the best knowledge or best practice you got. So it's not an easy task. So and just after the floods, if it is increasing, there are various other things to do. That's especially for me, right? Must be done things. We have to send crew out and mark the debris slab, because water levels are clearly marked. Like, you can go, you go immediately, you can see the water levels. So you have to put like sticks and mark until the survey is done. You have to mark and count. So next time survey goes and mark those. And also asset inspection, any asset floodgates or revertments or river drawings or abutments, we have to check. So asset inspection should be done, and preparation of flood maps. Within 1 month, you have to prepare the flood spread maps. So that is done through modeling, and collected. You had to because map, aerial photographs, and also collected documentation after post event monitoring. So we had to prepare something like, flood maps and what were the levels, and also damage assessment. And you have to update the hydrographs, because we record hydrographs in the flood warning manual. You have to update the flood warning manual is a living document, and you have to update the flood warning manual based on the based on the latest flood. And also you have to prepare incidence curves and determination of annual return period. So everything is well documented within 1 month after the cyclone, and then if there's another cyclone or another bad weather event came, everything is documented. Okay, that's the end of my presentation, and I'm more than welcome to have questions and share your experience in Sri Lanka. Thank you. සිංහලෙන් ඕනේ කිව්වා නේද? සිංහලෙන් කියනවා නම් මේ මොනවාද මේ ගම්වතුර කාලේ ගම්වතුර පිළිබඳව ඉගෙන ගැනීමේදී ඒක කරන්නේ විද්‍යාත්මක පදනමක් ගන්න. අනිත් එක ලංකාවේ වගේ හැම කෙනාම හරි දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ ලොක්ක හරි ගන්නේ. ඒකට සුදුසු ලෙස ට්‍රේනින් කරපු සුදුසු ලෙස ට්‍රේන් කියන්නේ සුදුසු ලෙස පුහුණු කරන ලද මධ්‍යම ලෙවල් එකේ ගොඩාක් එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් නැති අවුරුදු 30 විතර මොකද නව ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ අවුරුදු 21 වෙද්දි ග්‍රැජුවේට් වෙනවා. එතකොට අවුරුදු 21යි අලුතෙන් එන ග්‍රැජුවේට්ලා එයාට අවුරුදු 30ක් වෙද්දි එයා හොඳ මට්ටමක ඉන්නවා හොඳ නොලෙජ් එකක් එක්ක. ඒගොල්ලෝ තමයි ඔක්කොම තීරණ ගන්න. ඒගොල්ලෝ තීරණ අරගෙන අපිට කියනවා මේක තමයි අපේ තීරණේ අවශ්‍ය දේවල් ඔයා කරන්න කියලා. ඒකට මෙහි සුළුවෙන් කියනවා නම් ක්‍රම හතරක් අපි ප්‍රයෝජනට ගන්නවා. ලංකාව වගේ සර්විස් කියන්නේ මේ ඩිසාස්ටර් පාලන දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවක් තියෙනවා. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ලයිව් අප්ඩේට්. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ වෙලාවෙම පෙන්නන වෙබ්සයිට් එකෙන් ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකට ඒගොල්ලෝ ගන්නවා සයික්ලෝන් කොහෙද යන්නේ මේ පැත්තට සෙන්ටර් එකේ එනවා ඒ වගේ එකක් ඉස්සරහා ගන්න. ඒ වගේම මොඩලින් වර්ක් තියෙනවා. ඒ මොඩල් වලින් ඒගොල්ලෝ මොඩල් වලින් public information and තව මේ පරණ දත්ත වලින් මේ විචර වැස්සකින් මිලිමීටර් 300ක් වැස්සකින් අර හරියට අපිට කොච්චර වෙනවද කියන එක ඔක්කොම දත්ත ගබඩා කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒවත් බලලා ඒකොලා තීරණය දෙනවා මෙන්න තාපය දෙකකින් මෙතන ගන්නකොට ගන්නවා කියලා. එතකොට අපේ මේ
ඔප්ෂන් දෙන්න ඕනේ නැත්නම් ඔයගොල්ලෝ වෙබ්සයිට් එක බලලා ඒකෙන් ඉන්ෆෝමේෂන් ගන්නවා නැති.
මොකද කොකලින් ලයිව්
දෙනවා නැත්නම් ඔෆිෂියලි මේ ඩිපාර්ට්මන්ට් එක දෙන්න ඕනේ
නෑ ඔෆිෂියල් දෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. අපිට ඕනේ නම් කන්ෆර්මේෂන් එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. එතන ඩියුටි ඔෆිසර් කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් මේ වගේ ගොඩාක් සෙනග නැහැ. 24 hours ඉන්නේ එක ඔෆිසර්. එතකොට ප්ලන් එකක් වෙලාවට ඩියුටි ඔෆිසර් ඒගොල්ලෝ ෂිෆ්ට් කරන මාරු වෙනවා. ඕලා එකක් තියෙනවා වන්නව. එතකොට ඒගොල්ලන්ගෙන් අපිට මේක how reliable කියන කොච්චර මේක reliable කියන්නේ මේක හරිද නිවැරදිද කියන එක අපිට චෙක් කරගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ අනුව පරණ දත්ත දාලා ඒගොල්ලන් මොඩල් රන් කරලා public information දැන් මේ කියන්නේ ගන්න මීටර් 4ක් එද්දි ලයිව් කැමරා තියෙනවා. මේ වෙබ්සයිට් එකට ගියාම අපේ Gisborne District Council www.gdc.gov කියලා දාපුවම එනවා. ඒකේ වෙබ්සයිට් එකට ගියාම I want to see rainfall එක චෙක් කළාම හැමතැනම rainfall එක ලයිව් බලන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට කවුරුවත් මේ පොත් පෙරලා ඒක හොයන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක ටග්ගල් ලයිව් කියනවා. ඒකට එයාලා ඒක මොඩල් එකට ෆීඩ් කරනවා. ඒ වගේම පරණ හිස්ටරි එකේ දේවල් ඒ කියන්නේ මෙහෙට මෙච්චරක් දැක්කම මෙහි අට වෙනවා මේ අවස්ථාවේ මේක මීටර් 14කට නැත්නම් බට් ටග්ගල දැස්සා සමහර ප්ලට් වෙනවා ඒක නැගලා චුට්ටක් ගහලා ආයි කොහෙද දෙවනි වැස්ස ආයි වැඩි වෙනවා. එතකොට ඩබල් පීක් වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒක ඔක්කොම මොඩල් කරලා දෙන්නේ. ඒක අරගෙන ටටක් ගාලා දාලා ඉතින් short period ඒකල කියන ආවදන ගණන ඔයගොල්ලන් ඉෂු කරන්න කියලා. ඒකට මම මැප් එකක් වෙන්නේ මැප් කරලා දෙන්නේ මේ ලෙවල් එකට ගන්නවා මේ ලෙවල් එකට ගන්නේ වතුර නැගගෙන ගියොත් මේ හරියට වෙනවා. ඊට වඩා මේ පහකට නැග්ගොත් මේ හරියට වෙනවා. හතකට නැග්ගොත් මේ හරියට යනවා. එතකොට ඒකේ සිස්ටම් එකක් හදලා දෙනවා හැම කෙනාටම මොබයිල් නම්බර් දාලා ඒ මායි මේ කියන කට්ටියට එක ටෙක්ස්ට් එක හදලා තියෙනවා. At this level you will be informed about evacuation. You get ready for evacuation. හරි වගේ කියලා හදලා තියෙනවා. ඒකට ඒගොල්ලන් හැම කෙනාම ෆෝන් එකට බසර් එකක් යනවා. ඒකට බෑටුණක් ඇහැරෙනවා. ඇහැරුණාම ගමනට එයාගේ පැත්තට විතරයි යන්නේ. එයාගේ පැත්තට පිටට යවන්නේ නැහැ. එතකොට ඒක විතර වැඩි නම් ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ අල්ලපු ගමටයි යන්නේ. ඒ වගේ අන්තිම මුළු රීජන් එකටම ඉවැකුවේට් for the safe place කියන්නේ හරි තැනකට යන්න අවදාන නැති තැනකට යන්න කරනවා. එහෙම වෙද්දී civil defense emergency management කියන්නේ disaster management වගේ ඒකවල ටක් ගාලා හෙලිකොප්ටර්ස් දාලා ඔක්කොම ඉස්සුව ඉවැකුවේට් කරනවා.
ලෝකේ දැන් දියුණු රටවල් මොනවද ඔය වගේ විධිමත් තත්ත්වයට ගිහිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ?
අපි we are using the UK අපි එංගලන්තේ මොඩල් එක තමයි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. ගොඩක් ඔය ෆ්ලඩ් වෝර්නින් ඔෆිසර්ස්ලා එංගලන්තේ කියන්නේ ගොඩක් වෙනම ශ්‍රී ලාංකික අය ගිහිල්ලා පිටරටවල අවුරුදු දෙකක් වැඩ කරලා අපිට එනවා. මේ බොහොම රිලැක්ස් කන්ට්‍රි එක. ඉතින් ඉන්න ඔෆිස් වල හැම කෙනාම UK English speaking countries විතරයි. ජර්මනි වල කියන්නේ. ඉතින් එංගලන්තේ ඇමරිකාවේ ගිහිල්ලා ට්‍රේන් වෙලා. ඒ ඇමරිකාවේ ෆ්ලඩ් වලට ඔය මේ ෆ්ලොරිඩා පැත්තට යනවා. එංගලන්තේ තමයි ගොඩාක් අය මොඩල්ස් එකම ගියේ. හැබැයි අපි යූස් කරන්නේ නෙදර්ලන්ඩ් මොඩල් එක ඩෙල් ෆියුස් කියන මොඩල් එක.
ලංකාව උතනට එන්න කොච්චර කල් යයිද තව?
ලංකාව මෙතෙන්ට එන්න මේ එහෙමනේ මේක ෆ්ලඩ් වලින් විතරක් ලංකාව දියුණු වෙන්න බෑ. ලංකාවේ සිස්ටම් ඩෙවලොප් වෙන්න ඕනේ. දැන් අපි මේ උපැන්න සාහිත්‍ය ගන්න තැන ඉඳන් දැන් පුට්ටක් දියුණුයි. දැන් උපැන්න ගන්න වැඩි වෙලාවක් යන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් ඉතින් වාකින් ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඉස්සරේ මනින්නේ දවස් 3ක් විතර යනවා. ඉතින් අනිත් එක මේ පේෂන් එකකට එහෙම ටක් ගාලා over the phone appointment එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකට appointment එක යන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේ human contact like මිනිස්සුත් එක්ක තියෙන direct communication නැති වෙන්න ඕනේ. ඉතින් මේක දැන් ටිකක් හොඳ ට්‍රෙන්ඩ් එකකට කරනවා. උද්ද බලපුවම සෑහෙන හොඳ ට්‍රෙන්ඩ් එකක් මට හරි පුදුමයි මේ මම මේ EPS එකක් ගන්න ඕන වුණා. මම කෝල් එකක් දාපුවම ඒකෙන් ටක් ගාලා මේ මට appointment එකක් දුන්නා. ඒකට එතනට යන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේ human contacts මේ රටවල් දිනුනලා තියෙන්නේ කිසි කෙනෙක් මිනිස් යාළු අඳුරගෙන එහෙම යන්නේ නැහැ. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ මේ ඔක්කොම සිස්ටම් ලාඩින් විතරක් නෙමෙයි. දැන් අනිත් එක අපේ දැන් රටවල් වල ලොක්ක තමයි තීරණය ගන්න. එහෙම නැත්නම් අදාළ නැති පොලිටිෂියන්ස්ලා. එහෙමත් නැත්නම් තව උඩින් ඕඩර් වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ නැතුව කොට නිලධාරියෝ පුහුණු වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒකට යන ස්ට්‍රෝං රජයේ සේවයක් ඕනේ. දැන් සිස්ටම් දියුණු වුණාට දැන් රජයේ සේවයක් බලපුවම කියලා යනවා ගොඩාක් රජයේ සේවය හරිම අකාර්යක්ෂම. හැමතැනම වැඩක් කරන්නේ නිකන් ඒ කියන්නේ ෂූටින් නැහැ කියලා වැඩ කරන්නේ. ඒ වගේ වෙන කතා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒක නිසා මේ කාලයක් හොඳ ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ මිනිස්සුන් ඉතින් ටිකක් කෝට්ලෙන් පාලනය කරන්න ඕනේ જાතිය. ඉස්සර අපි ගන්නවා මේ සුද්දා හසෙන් ගහලා අපේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ වැඩ ගත්තා කියලා. ඒ සුද්දා හසෙන් ගහුවේ නැත්නම් වැඩ කරන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක තමයි දැන් අපි නෙදර්ලන්තේ ශ්‍රී ගියාම දැන් ලංකාවේ මම වෙරළ සංරක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ ඩිරෙක්ටර් ජෙනරල් හිටියා. අමිගාව 400ක් වැඩ කළා. දැන් මම ඒ රටේ ගිහිල්ලා ගංගවලුයි මුකුදයි ඔක්කොම කරනවා. මට ඉන්නේ 4ක්. ඉතින්
ඒක තාක්ෂණය උපාය මාර්ගිකව ප්‍රයෝජන ගන්නවා.
තාක්ෂණයක් තියෙනවා හැම කෙනාම වැඩක් කරනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් අපේ ලංකාවේ වැඩ කරන්නේ නැහැ නේ. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ඔෆිස් එකේ අරයාගේ මාර්ගය යනවා මෙයාගේ මාර්ගය යනවා ඒ වගේ මාර්ගයක් වුණාම මුළු ඔෆිස් එකේ ආච්චි මරුණත් බස් එකක් කරන් යනවා දවසට වැඩ කරනවා. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ වෙරළ සංරක්ෂණයේදී මම එහෙම හරිම මොනවාද ආස නැති චරිතයක්. මොකද මිනිස්සුගේ මරණ ගෙවල් වලට පහ කියා නැති එක වාහනයක් දෙන්නේ ගියවම කැමති නැහැ. මොකද මිනිස්සු පුරුදු වෙලා ඉන්න කවුරු හරි මරනකම් දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව වෙන කන්නේ එකේ. මේ මනුස්සයා දවල් 12 වෙද්දී බස් 10ක් විතර ගියාම කන්න දිගියව. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ චින්තනයේ ඉතිවිල්ලේ පටන් නාස්තිය නැති වෙන කාලයක් ආවේ නැත්තම් මේ තත්ත්වෙට එන්නේ නැහැ.
දියුණු සමාජ පරිවර්තනයකට ඔබතුමියගේ අන්තර්ජාතික අත්දැකීම් එක්ක මොනවද කරන යෝජනා?
හොඳ සද පාලනයක් තියෙනවා. වටර් ගාලා කරන්නේ.
දැන් පවතින තත්ත්වය ගැන මොකද්ද ඔබතුමියගේ අදහස?
ටිකක් හොඳයි. පළපුරුද්ද මදි. තාම මේ වගේ රජයේ සේවකයන් මාත් රජයේ සේවකයෙක් අවුරුදු 35 ගේ රජයේ සේවකයන් මම කැමති නැහැ. බට් ඉතින් රජයේ සේවකයෝ කියන්නේ ඇවිල්ලා උදේ 9 වෙනකම් වත් කරනවා ඊට පස්සේ වැඩ කරනවා ඊට පස්සේ ආයෙත් ඉන්නවා ඊට පස්සේ වගේ
compared to New Zealand, Sri Lanka is implementing things very fast.
sorry
Sri Lanka is changing and adopting things very fast. You said in New Zealand it will take 1 year. Sri Lanka we can do it is very faster, and nowadays I think it is faster than
Oh, there must
faster than earlier. But nowadays because there are some other factors are human rights and various factors. Because of that, the Australia and New Zealand things are getting delayed. That is not in Sri Lanka that way, and Sri Lanka is I think going to implement digital and like a cybernetic like policies more than other countries, and Sri Lanka and South Asia has more capacity to do it.
Oh.
That is people and other things. I think.
I'll respond to that. I'll finish off with this gentleman. And මම කිව්වේ මගේ පෞද්ගලික මතය ඒක women engineers forum මතය නෙමෙයි රාජ්‍ය සේවකයෙක් ඉඳලා patient කෙනෙක් වශයෙන් මගේ පෞද්ගලික මතය කිව්වේ. And it's very correct, like because there are human factors and environmental factors much more stringent than in Sri Lanka, and also it's going to be a compliance no matter whether it's a public sector or government sector or private party. Even I was within the same office because I went and cut there was a flood and I had to cut a sand. So my experience is just to get a contractor, ask contractor to just go ahead, go and do it, right? Same way I did it. And I released the flooding period, but then later, next day, our compliance team, they came back to me and said, do you have a consent to cut the sandbar? I said, no, I have done under emergency. Okay, then you get a retrospective consent. And retrospective consent is about $10,000 consultancy. But for the sake of compliance, I had to do that. So to answer your question, because we have we are doers. Sri Lankan engineers are doers. So we wanted to finish off things, but decision making for various reasons. We are much better than developed countries engineers because they follow the protocol, they get the approvals, they do consultation, they do coordination and stakeholder engagement and everything, and then only they do the work. So the process takes time, and process, it's a must to go through the process. So that whether we like it or not, we have to accept that.
They have the power failure and also for 3 days you have so how that message was passed, the emergency messages, and how was there any disturbance to that?
Until complete failure, we had power. So the message was gone when the trigger levels were reaching, and when it's completely overtopped, then only all the power and everything gone. So post-event activities were affected due to that failures, but through vouchers we got water and no internet, no telephones. Especially me, my children didn't know what happened to me because they knew that there was a flood and I was working on floods. So it took 4 days for me to contact the family.
Our batchmates who was in Brisbane, they had 3 batchmates. They had a similar problem just before our deep car. But they also said that they didn't have 3 to 4 days power and everything. But they had backups like UPS systems and all.
No,
they
now
were prepared for it.
Yeah, now Gisborne also got a backup cloud to work during, still you need power.
Yeah.
So, so batteries and battery operated backup plans, because this is one of the first flood we got after 35 years. So the systems are in place. So these recovery modes are in place. Yeah, because Brisbane is also very vulnerable for floods and irregular floods. So, yeah.
දේශගුණික විපර්යාස ලෝකේ බොහෝ රටවල් වලට දැන් සාමාන්‍ය දෙයක් වගේ සිදු වෙමින් තියෙනවා. මේක ලංකාවේ ආර්ථික සමාජීය සංස්කෘතික තත්වයට විශේෂයෙන් භවභෝග වගාවට මොන විදිහට බලපායිද?
ඒකට තමයි ඉතින් ඇඩැප්ටේෂන් පොලිසි කියන්නේ. එමනේ දේශගුණ විපර්යාසය අපිට නතර කරන්න බෑ අවම කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඉතින් ඒ අවම කරන්න රටවල් එක තීරණ ගන්නවා. ඉතින් අවම අපිට ඒකෙන් මිදෙන්න බෑ. ඒකින්ද අපි ඒකට පුරුදු වෙන්න ඕනේ. ඉතින් දේශගුණ විපර්යාස වලට ඇඩැප්ටේෂන් පොලිසි කියලා තියෙනවා. ඒක තමයි ලෝකෙම අනුගමනය කරන්නේ. And this time
flood protection walls, what is the name you have used for that?
stop banks.
Stop banks. What is the criteria for constructing the stop banks?
It's same like compacted earth, like
No, the criteria of locating those stop banks along the river. At what locations they have chosen to.
that is we need to. There are like buffer zones, and also we take into the account that worst floods, like the Bola was 4,800 meter cubes per second, and Cyclone Gabrielle was 5,200 meter cubes per second. So based on that, we calculate the area you need to cover that, like cross section you need. So based on that, you specify the floodplain and buffers, and then only and also at the climate change scenarios. And so basically now we had 5,250. So we generally design for 6,000 cubics.
And you said that at the very beginning, estimated cost of the $2 billion.
Yeah.
So, was the New Zealand government,
No, government doesn't help at all.
then we
It's,
got
it's
some
through the public general rates. It's nothing is free. No free lunch in New Zealand, right?
Yeah,
So nothing is
I
free.
mean now,
Everything is paid by the people.
I
So
know that, but that means taxpayers' money.
taxpayers' money, and sometimes for Gabrielle we got
I don't know whether you got any financial assistance from other countries or.
no. It's self-sustained, and yeah. So you have to generate your funds and save funds and keep.
That may be the reason why there's a long, you said it took long process.
Yeah.
That may be one reason.
That may be one reason, like because to get
Finances.
even to get
Funds.
release the funds, it takes time. Yeah.
Regarding the human settlements now, is there any restriction to have the settlements into now the identified flood areas now? Are there any provisions there to have?
Yeah, because as I showed you, all the flood fronting areas and flood areas are mapped, and there are different flow levels. You can't make buildings because if it is in a flood fronting area, the building platform level is different. So it all connects to the policy matters, like building approval process and the plot sizes. It's all as we got a policy decision, and when we do all this mapping, it goes to the policy decision, and they brush up every 3 years time. They change scenarios. Okay, thank you very much.
Can I ask a question?
Oh yeah, sure.
Are there any natural flood management mechanisms implemented in your, at least in your area?
It's not KIVPI probably.
Natural flood management mechanisms implemented in your area?
Natural flood management system implemented in New Zealand.
What is natural flood management?
It's like using plant-based barriers such as to attenuate flood.
Flood ponding? No, because not for these nature things, like for cyclones, but there are attenuation ponds when we approve minor tanks, like then we there's a process for attenuation, like if there's a major subdivision approval, it comes to us, and then when we analyze if the stormwater is not can't be managed based on the equation, then we ask the developer to have an attenuation point. So likewise, all these factors are taken into account on a minor like developments, not a major river schemes, not major river scheme designs. Harita, thank you. Thanks for that. And thank you for the opportunity given after a long time. And good to be here again. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we kindly invite the past chairperson of the Women Engineers Forum of the Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka, India, Mrs. Tamara Malawarachi, to come forward and present the token of appreciation to engineer Mrs. Mangala Vikramnayaka, our distinguished resource person today.
I didn't expect that Tamara was my roommate when we were doing masters in the Netherlands. No, it's okay. And I didn't expect this to be very frank.